Well, my name is Kurt Nelson. I was born in Moline. There were two boys in our family. I had an older brother who also went to the Free Church and was confirmed there. And I had a sister who died at birth.
Wish I had the words.
And a couple of the kids,
right now,
I can't see who parked in the alley outside of their old home on 23rd Avenue.
But you'd probably be deaf to the things that I said. Just like
I really don't know how it started, but my brother, who was 6 years older than me, we both attended Sunday school at the Free Church. At that time, it was known as the Swedish Free Evangelical Free Church. There was a time, I can't remember this, but there was a time when even the sermons were delivered in Swedish. It was a Swedish church from its origin. And that's how I got started going there, really. I was one of the kids that, along with many of the other neighborhood kids, we went to the movies on Saturday afternoon. Mostly they were westerns. And people in the church at that time, they sort of frowned on that for some reason. And there was one person there that was my age. He was in my class at school, and he came up alongside of me one day and told me that I would certainly go to hell if I didn't quit going to the movies. Well, I didn't believe that. And as a result, I quit going to church and kept on going to the movies. But I did slip into, as I got older, I slipped into drinking. And I will tell you right now, I did not drink or start drinking because I had a problem. I drank because I liked the stuff. I liked the taste of it. And it also made you feel good after a while, but that was not my purpose in starting to drink, because I actually liked the taste of it. And I will say this also, and a lot of people might not believe this at all, especially if they were non-drinkers. Drinking moderately, I'll put it that way, doesn't always impair your judgment or your life. There are many successful people in life who were moderate drinkers. And at that time, I was one of them. And that was then. But later on, it became a much more serious problem. And it led to a problem in my life where I liked it too much. And one time, when I was in a saloon drinking, and I realized that I probably shouldn't be driving home. And I thought I would call up somebody to drive me home. Now this is the part where I think God intervened in my life. I had many friends, drinking and otherwise, that I could have called to come and pick me up and drive me home. But for some reason, and I can't tell you why, I called up Violet Hellstrom. Our families were very good friends. I knew who she was from childhood on. I knew she was a fine girl. And if I had to give you a specific reason for calling her, I couldn't do it. And that's where I think God intervened in my life. she came to the saloon and picked me up that night. I told her I would be waiting outside, but I didn't. I still was inside. And this must have required an immense amount of courage for her to do this, because I knew that she came from a non-drinking family, period. But she walked into the saloon to get me and take me out of there and take me home. On the way home, I was telling her about the drinking problem that I had. And I knew it was a problem with me because I was drinking too much. It was at that time that she merely remarked, "Why don't you turn your life over to the Lord?" And she said, "If you do, I will help you." She was the one that introduced me to a life of prayer, serious prayer. And I remember in those early days we spent many nights on our knees before the sofa praying. That's something I'll never forget. And she was undoubtedly a spiritual person. She was very serious about that. And she was also a wonderful help to me at that time. And things evolved between us, and it led to marriage, to make a little longer story shorter. And I've never regretted it. So from there on, that's how our relationship, while I knew her and her family from the outside, this was the first time that the connection between us two amounted to something. And she said, "Why don't you turn your life over to the Lord, and I will help you to stop your drinking." And it was quite an ordeal, hit and miss for quite a while. Giving up drinking, if you're not familiar with it, isn't an easy thing to quit, like smoking or what else. But it finally came about through much prayer and help from her, and I will say cooperation from me, because I saw that it was a problem, that things kind of resolved the way they did. Our families knew each other from way, way back. My mother and her mother were the first, I'll put it this way. My mother said that her mother was the first Swedish lady she ever met in Moline. And of course, being of the same nationality and tongue, they got along beautifully. And I can't remember back how early it was when I was familiar with and knew the Hellstrom family. I knew her brothers, and I remember her one brother was a pilot, the B-24 pilot. He was killed in the war. And I remember I was in boot camp at that time at Great Lakes in Illinois, and I had the picture, had the Moline newspaper delivered to me, and I'll never forget getting that paper and opening it up one day, and here was her brother Carl's picture on the front page, killed in a plane crash in the Air Force. And that's something that just remains in my mind. He was a good, Carl, name is Carl, he was a good Christian boy. He went to church and he loved the Lord. I remember Carl very well. I remember the last time I saw him alive, we were walking on the street in downtown Moline, and we happened to meet, and he was talking about being drafted, and so was I, because that was what was going on at that time. And he wanted to enlist, but he had a little problem with his heart rate. And it was mostly a case of nerves. But he finally got in, passed his physical on his own without being drafted. And he was a B-24 pilot. And he unfortunately was killed in a plane crash, not in action, but when he was stationed in New Mexico. I was in the Navy. I got drafted during World War II, and I had my choice of the Army or the Navy, and I selected the Navy. They lived much more comfortably than the people did in the Army. You also had a good chance of, instead of being gunned down on the battlefield, of drowning. Anyway, I selected the Navy, and I was in the Navy for, I can tell you exactly, 26 months, 2 years and 2 months to the day. And they were good years for me. I didn't mind being in the Navy at all. Well, I was in from 1944 to 46, and the war ended in 45. So the war was on for a good year or so while I was in, and I never saw action, I will tell you that, but I was sent to the island of Saipan in the Pacific, which had already been taken from the Japanese by the United States forces, and that's where I was stationed for about a year before coming home to be discharged. They had a chapel on the base, and on occasion I went there. I was not a non-spiritual person, but neither was I an active church goer. Well, that's the best way for me to put it to you. I learned about Jesus as a boy, and I never ever forgot the story. And that was when I went to Sunday school, and so I learned about Jesus in that same church that I am a member of today. I also don't attend there today. I sometimes wonder if I'm still on the roll, but as far as I'm concerned, because I don't go anywhere anymore, and I assume that unless they've removed me from the roll, they still know who I am. Our families knew each other very well. I knew Violet from when she was a girl, and neither one of us got married younger when we were young. But we didn't avoid marriage, it just didn't happen. You know, when you marry somebody, you better pick the right one. So we never really avoided marriage, and we went together for quite a long time before we did get married ourselves. The hang-up really was she was taking care of her parents, and I was taking care of my parents. And there was somebody that suggested at one time that we all move in together, and I said, forget it. As much as we knew and loved each other, I couldn't see a situation like that taking place. You must understand that her parents were still living. She was taking care of them. My parents were still living, and I was taking care of them. And the best way for me to put this, to most people that wouldn't seem natural to postpone a marriage because of that reason. But we were a little older people then. We weren't young teenagers, and it wasn't what you call a major problem to wait it out. I would have had a difficult time putting my folks in a nursing home. And I think Violet would too, although with her father at the very, very end, she was almost forced into it because of his condition. But neither one of us would have really done that on our own for the purposes of it being convenient, if you know what I mean. So to be honest with you, we just kept company all those years. And when her folks finally passed away, and my folks passed away, and I will put it to you this way, the day after my mother died, this might sound crazy to you, and you might wonder why I did it in that particular manner, because I didn't set out to do it that way purposefully. But the day after my mother died, I drove over and bought the engagement ring and asked Violet to marry me. Now you must understand, we were not two young teenagers hot in love, to use the word. We were both adults, and we both knew the situation. So biding our time was not really a problem for us. But I will say this to you. We were not sexually active during that time. And we probably looked at some of these things from a little different angle that a younger person might handle it. Our situation might seem very strange to many, many people. And maybe we were strange, I don't know. But that's the way our thinking was, and that's the way it worked out. And I don't think either one of us ever regretted doing it the way we did. We both loved and honored our parents. We loved each other. And to find a solution to the problem that existed at that time, the way we did it was what we picked to do. They continued their relationship as friends in love, but not lovers until 1988, after all their parents had died. When they finally married, Kurt bought the ring the next day after the final parent had died. Now, there might be a lot of people that wouldn't understand that. And I can understand why they might not understand that. But that is actually the way it happened. Violet was the nicest and kindest girl I have ever known. I miss her terribly, but I'm also aware of where she is at today. And I also know that no matter what happens, life goes on. And there's no question to that. And you merely go along with it. There are times, you must believe me, when I walk around this empty apartment and I actually ask him to take me home. But so far he hasn't done it. And I laugh about that because I know that his ways are not my ways. And if he has me still living like I am today, he has a better reason for it than I do. When I draw my last breath, I will be together with Jesus and reunited with Violet. I have that written down somewhere here on paper, but I hope when somebody goes through my papers after I die that they might find that. But it's very, very true. But I do hope that people might see what Christ has done for me. It changed my life. Well, basically, as a bottom line, is to know, for them to know, that Jesus Christ is their Lord and their Savior, and that He died for them. A lot of people can't comprehend that, but that's what it is all about. Probably a lot of people that will poo-poo this and not think much of it. But people need to be made aware of that there will be a day when they will stand in His presence and be accounted for. And that is no light-hearted, joking manner. It's just something that I don't know how you can bring that up to people today, some people anyway, to make them realize that you will stand before your Creator someday. And as far as Jesus is concerned, I believe, if I remember right, that one time I read where He stated, I have not come to judge, I have come to save. And that's what people need to realize, that He is their Savior.
I wish that the words I told you just now, I wish they would turn you around. But you're probably still deaf to the things that I said, just like I was with my own